All right, QMJHL fans, welcome back to another Monday edition of our Facebook Live conversations. Different type of guest we have today since we have our first head coach of the season joining us. So we have Bruce Richardson here from the Armada in Blainville-Boisbriand. So Bruce, thanks for taking the time for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Obviously, a busy time nowadays, so I guess we could actually, you know what? Usually, as an icebreaker, I ask the boys because we have players here. I ask what their nickname and their choice for their number they used to wear is. So yourself, I think throughout your career, I think you were mostly number 9. Is that right?
Yeah, I had number 9. I have number 22. I am number 20. So probably those are the three that I mainly use during my hockey career and my junior career.
And why is that? Which one did you wear the most, or choose for a
Well,
specific reason?
20 is my neighbor was Marty Lapointe that played for the Laval Titan, and he wear number 20 with the Detroit Red Wings. So we were from the same city. So I decided to wear that number 20. And after that, he wear 22 also. So I decided to wear 22 just to make it. Yeah, he was one of my mentor. He was my neighbor. I grew up watching him and hanging out with him.
Hmm.
And after that, 9 just because of Maurice Richard. Being a Quebec guy, and when I went to the U.S., I used the number 9. So these are the reason why I use these three number during my career.
What about nickname wise? Did you have one that stuck throughout the years?
I had a couple to be honest with you. I had Richie, obviously
For
Richie
sure.
because of Richardson, and also I had the Chicken Hawk. Chicken Hawk was it's a cartoon character.
Okay.
He's a small chicken, and you got Longhorn. He's the big chicken, and the small chicken always wants to fight and always wants to beat up, but he's so small that he's having a hard time getting into a fight. And these were the two nickname, or now sometimes the guys they call me coach, So, but mainly Richie and the Chicken Hawk.
I guess by the way you describe the chicken hawk, we can get sort of a sense of what type of hockey player you were.
Yeah, exactly. I was annoying to play against. I played with a lot of passion, a lot of emotion. I played a gritty game. That was the type of hockey, that I played. Obviously, when you move on to the pro level, you need to adjust your game a bit.
Hmm.
I think I was a good player junior and midget AAA, but to make it to the pro, you got to bring something else. So that's why I brought that. But it was something that I always had in me. But junior and midget AAA, I was able to produce a little bit more. But when I got to the pro, I was more of a third, fourth liner in the American Hockey League. And when I went to the NHLs, I had to play that type of game.
Now, for people who are watching online who don't know, you obviously played in the QMJHL before going on to have that pro career. Spent some times up in Sherbrooke and with Chicoutimi. Now, I don't want to go over obviously all those years, but I mean, maybe if you had to pick one of your favorite moments from your QMJHL career as a player, what would that be?
Well, definitely my draft year, '93. I was drafted in the second round by Sherbrooke. It was the first year they were coming back to it was the first year they got to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. They were transferred from the Trois-Rivières Draveurs
Yeah.
back then, but that was probably when I got drafted was the pretty memorable souvenir that I have. But also, I was able to participate in the Memorial Cup in all in 1997. So that was something really fun too, and it helped me to start my pro career because there was a lot of people in the stands and a lot of scouts. I wasn't draft, so these type of event really helped me to get a tryout in Hershey in the American Hockey League, and after that, being able to play there a couple of years.
And it's funny that you should mention basically the draft being one of your fondest memories because I think that's one of the things we bring up year in year out is at the QMJHL is that having that draft live and players
Yeah,
getting to
it's
hear their names going on stage. It is a memorable moment because some guys can go on to have years and years of pro hockey, but you never get drafted, to another league if you don't make it to the pros. So it's pretty cool to hear you mention it.
Yeah, it was awesome. They used to do it when I was playing back then in the '90s. They used to do it at the Maurice Richard Arena in
Yep.
Montreal beside the Olympic Stadium. It was always there. Now, throughout the years, they change it every year. So, but it was fun, to see all the people there and all the teams and all the families and the players. it's something special that we're fortunate to have here in Quebec.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, knock on wood, everything's going down in Sherbrooke this year. So we're back to your old
Yeah,
stomping grounds and
exactly.
back to square one for sure. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, Bruce, we can't really have you on here without discussing the playoffs. I mean, they're right around the corner for you. So obviously, super busy times for you. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time for doing this. But in terms of playoffs, I want to know basically, you guys had a sort of a weird way of finding out you guys had made it this year. Can you take us through that whole scene? I guess you guys found out through your last game that guys were in.
Yeah, we were on the bench, and my equipment manager Marty was looking at the score and keeping us updated throughout the game. Obviously, when he was telling us that Val-d'Or was losing, we were down 4-2 during that game against Gatineau, and we then scored another goal to make it 4-3, 4-4, 5-4, and now he was keeping us up to date, and until the game was over. And when the overtime started, that's when he told us that the game in Val-d'Or was over. So I told the guys right on the bench, I said, you know what, boys, we're in. We've worked so hard since Christmas. The result hasn't been there since Christmas, but the guys always kept competing and having a right attitude. And but I told them, you know what, yeah, we're in, but let's finish on a bang. Let's finish positive with a win here, so we could get into the playoff with some confidence and with a little bit of swag. And I thought that the guys, we had some chances in overtime, and we lost in shootout. But
I think we lost connection to Bruce, so give us a few seconds here to see if he can join us again. Bruce, are you with us? Yeah, there we go. We got him back. No worries. We're cutting off again. We're going to wait for a few seconds here to see if the connection goes better.
You there?
I think we got him. There we go.
Sorry. People are calling me while I'm online with you guys. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Yeah. So obviously, if we were just basically discussing how you had found out that you guys got in on the very final day. So to circle back, basically, there's a famous cliche in hockey that says always play to the last whistle. Is this something that you guys can sort of build off that experience and be like, hey, man, for the next years, you're always in it till the final whistle, till the last game of the year or whatever it is? I mean, obviously, you were mentioning times were tough from Christmas and on, but I mean, this goes to show you that it's never over, right?
No, exactly. It's never over until the last buzzer. And I thought the guys competed hard, and sometimes when you're not having the result, the mindset and the attitude of the guys might start getting negative, and guys might start getting, upset about the situation. They come to the rink with their head between their legs, and they don't want to be there. But for us, it wasn't a problem. The guys always came in. We lost the game. They came in the next day with a new mindset. They wanted to get better. They wanted to get over that bump that we were going through, and they never gave up. So it was fun for a coach to be able to get in the room and always having 20 guys, with a smile and ready to compete and ready to try to get better, and hopefully that the next game will be the right one. And then it's fun. And you know what? I'm so happy for the players because they deserve to be part of the playoff. The behind the scene that the people don't see is the guys. They deserve to be in the playoff with all the work ethic they put through, what they did. I think, it's a reward for them. And when you get in now, everybody starts at zero. So it's a fresh start. And, we got a little bit of confidence with that and a little bit of positive. So we're excited to be in the playoff, and we're getting ready to face Sherbrooke.
Yeah, and obviously it says a lot about your group. It's a bunch of resilient guys, obviously, who love to work, who have that work ethic that you were bringing up. You also brought up the fact that your first round opponent is Sherbrooke. I mean, we won't hide the fact that they're one of the powerhouses in the league this year. So I guess my question would be, how do you sort of prepare, or, obviously I won't ask how you motivate the boys, because once you're in the playoffs, everyone's motivated, right? But I mean, how do you sort of prepare for such a tough opponent, knowing how strong they are going into the playoffs?
Well, first of all, I don't think you could approach telling the guys, like, not they obviously they know, but I think we got to go one game at a time. Yeah. Let's not think about the outcome. Let's go throughout. Let's look at the process that will help us to win, 4 games. So it's the first one. We're getting ready for the first one, and we're going to have to make adjustment after the first one. But this week it's a week where for the coaches, we're doing a lot of video, getting ourselves ready to make sure that we cover every situation on Sherbrooke and making sure that our system is perfect to be able to play against them. And Friday when the puck drop, we'll be ready. But I think the main thing is not worrying about winning 4 games. It's about winning the next one. And that's how we're going to approach it. Because obviously when you look at a mountain, you're right, at the mountain, and you look at the mountain, it looks so huge, and you feel that you're never going to be able to get up top because it looks impossible. But when you take a couple step backward, it feels that the mountain starts getting smaller. And you start, looking at a plan to get up top, and that's what we're doing right now. It's going to be 1 game at a time. We're going to focus on getting ready this week. There's some of the guys that have some bumps and bruises that needs to rest up, so they're going to be able to play on Friday. And ourselves, the coaching staff, we're going to make sure that we have a plan in place so that the players could follow. And at the end, they'll execute, and they'll be ready to play on Friday.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, to bring up another hockey cliche, they always say that confidence is key. So obviously, if you guys were to win the first one or the second one, the minute you have a win in that series, then that's when the momentum starts building up. So anything's possible once you get that first dub.
And I think personally too, us playing Gatineau the last 2 games and seeing that we can compete against that kind of team, even like if we didn't have any overage player this year, and if our top scorer wasn't playing, the guys, they feel that they were able to play against that kind of team. So they see a similarity to Sherbrooke that that we're going to be able, and we did it against Gatineau, so they don't see why we couldn't do it against Sherbrooke.
Yeah, obviously, once you can skate with the big boys, then anything's possible, right?
Exactly.
And you were mentioning basically in terms of preparation and getting that game plan in place, you were preparing with a lot of video. Now, what I want to know is basically, are you sort of rewatching the games where you guys faced Sherbrooke mostly, or are you more looking over at the last trend of the Sherbrooke games? I'm guessing you don't go back to what they were doing in November.
No, not really. I think we were looking, the last couple of games, and also the games that we played against them after Christmas. So many changes, after Christmas. They added some new players. We lost some players. So just, but obviously at the end, we don't want to change the way we play. We just want to make sure that we know what they're going to bring. And I'm pretty sure they're doing their homework on the other side. But at the end, the game is played on the ice with 2 teams. And the players are the one that are going to play. At the end, we're going to give them a plan, but they got to make sure that they perform and they execute.
And obviously, I mean, you've been a coach for so many years that you know how it works in the playoffs. But I'm sorry if I'm asking all these questions because it's the first time we have a head coach on. So
no problem.
It's very interesting. But I'm sort of trying to find out basically in your preparation for the playoffs. I mean, are you sort of making sure your guys are as prepared as possible, or are you preparing in terms of facing that one specific opponent? So you said you weren't going to change what your game plan was, but are you making sure basically that you adapt to them, or that your guys are ready for a certain aspect, or is it a mix of both?
Well, obviously, I think it's a mix of both. You got to know what they're going to do. You got to make sure you look at their tendency, the way they play, and things like that. Obviously, we know what kind of team they are. We're going to have to adjust some situation in our system to make sure that we're able to match up against Sherbrooke. But at the end, there's a way we want to play as a team since day one, and we don't want to change that. There's a culture, there's a team identity that we have that we want to make sure that we keep having. Obviously, we have a young group of players, and we want to make sure that they get a lot of experience throughout those playoffs, and it's going to help out next year and the future also. So I think it's a mix of both, but obviously at the end, the game of hockey is so quick. There's a lot of things that happen. It's not a perfect game. There's a lot of mistake that happens throughout the game. We just got to make sure that we're able to react. And like I say to the players, never too high, never too low. We need to be able to control over emotion. So, and I think that's also one thing that's important too is to prepare the guys mentally and physically.
Yeah. And obviously yourself having that much experience as a player, I'm guess you've seen some of these similar situations where some upsets or the underdog has beaten top guys before, right?
Exactly. And, obviously, we're not the favorite in that series, and it's okay because it's something that I'm used to as a player. Nobody thought that I was going to be able to get to the NHL. I wasn't able to get as a full-time player, but I did have some NHL contract, and I had some preseason games and things like that, and I was able to play pro. So being an underdog is something I'm used to, and I try to bring that experience to my team also.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm pretty sure you'd ask anyone around if they'd rather be the underdog or the top dog. Most people would say they'd rather be an underdog because basically no pressure on you, and then everything from there is just smooth sailing.
Exactly.
And it's funny that you should bring the conversation back to you because I was going to say enough with the playoff talk. I'm sure you've had your head full with all that everything. So I want
Yeah.
to go back to you. Obviously, you had a great career as a player and as a coach, but I want to go back basically to your coaching days. Those sort of kicked off. You're more of a Reggie Dunlop type of guy, so you were a player coach for the last few seasons of your career. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I was there 2 years, 1 year in Nottingham and 1 year in Braehead in the Elite League in England.
Yep.
And that league, a lot of team in Europe, they used to do that. Now it's not as common. They take a player that has a lot of experience and they save money, so they don't have to pay a coach and a player. So what they do is that they bring a player with experience. And basically I hired like an assistant coach that he was behind the bench, but I was coaching, but during games I was playing. So it's kind of like, it's funny, but it's a lot of work. It's a fun job, like to just being able to finish your career, to start your coaching career, and to stop playing. It's kind of like it's good. It's a mix of both,
Yeah.
and it makes the transition a little smoother. So I was able to do that in Braehead to start a new franchise. Actually, it was a franchise. It was an expansion team, and I took it, and one day at a time built that. And that year we did pretty well, and I did it 1 year because I was offered then after that a job in Midget AAA to be a head coach with Chateauguay.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing once you've sort of had that overlap throughout your career, the end of your career, where you had to prep, the team as a coach and then prep yourself as a player. I'm guessing nowadays there's no excuse for a player to show up to your team not being prepared to a game. I mean,
well, exactly. When I was there, obviously I had to do a lot of recruitment.
yeah,
And it's a kind of like that league there is similar to the ECHL, same caliber. You're allowed to sign 12 imports when I was there, so I had to do a lot of homework during the season, during the off season, to try to recruit some player. And it was funny because I was recruiting players, and I had no clue where Glasgow was and what kind of city. I was talking to players, and I was telling them, "Yeah, you're going to live in an apartment, but I can't tell you where." We never had a team. I've never been in the city. I was recruiting while I was sitting here in Montreal in my house. So I was selling, like not selling, but I was trying to convince player to come to Braehead, Glasgow,
yeah.
without even knowing where we would play, how the city looks, like all these kind of thing. And I was able to bring some players, and we had a pretty good season. It went really well, actually. It went really, really well, and I was really happy about that. But it was a lot of work, to be honest with you. I remember that
For
first
sure.
game, when I played, there was like 600 people in the stands, and if you look at the team now, it's a sellout crowd every game. We had, by the end of the year, we had 3,000 people, nice arena in a mall. It was just great. It was a great how can I say, it was great for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great experience, but also a learning experience, and I learned a lot throughout that year. The managing sight of the game, and so I had fun, and it's a perfect job. Like and the guys with the resume I had, they
Yeah.
knew where I came from. They knew what kind of type of player I was, and so they respected me. So what I would do is that on Mondays it was a day off. Tuesdays we had a hard day, so I would practice with the guys. If we had to do a bag skate or a hard practice or army practice, I would do it. I would do it. I had a whistle on my glove. I had my assistant coach there helping out. And on Wednesday was more of a system day, so I would put my tracksuit and obviously I didn't have to work on my system. So
Yeah.
I went in tracksuit and I was able to run the practice. And Thursday just special team, and Friday, Saturday we had some games. So it was fun. It was something that I really enjoyed.
Special teams must have been interesting when you're the coach and a player. I mean, you knock yourself off the power play? You put yourself as a first liner? How'd that go down?
No, I didn't, because obviously I was at the end of my career.
Yeah.
I knew that my good days were behind me, and I basically had, some of the guys that I signed to be put in those situations. And at the end, I was playing on a second power play, and if we were a 5-on-3, I wasn't on it. I
Hmm.
wanted to win, and I think I was honest in the way I run my team.
Now it's pretty obvious from what you're explaining here that you were a lifelong or meant to be a coach, pretty much. I mean, like, I'm guessing that was your follow up dream from the start. But what I want to know is that you got some time, you got a little bit of taste of some preseason games in the NHL with both Detroit, Colorado, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, who were both franchises, had some stellar coaches, if you want, back in the days. So I want to know basically who was one of the guys that you crossed paths with during your career that sort of had a big influence on you in terms of a head coach. I know you had Scotty Bowman, you played
Yeah.
for Randy Carlisle, Babcock, a bunch of different big names like that. So is there one coach that sort of stands out that you were sort of emulating?
Well, obviously Bob Hartley really, was a coach that I really look up to, because obviously he gave me my first chance when I came out of junior
Okay.
after the Memorial Cup. He invited me to Hershey just as an invite, an American Hockey League tryout. That's it. And I made the team and signed a 2-year deal with them. So he's the one who, gave me that first opportunity. If it wasn't for him, probably would have never got the chance to play in American Hockey League. So he gave me that opportunity.
Yeah.
And after that, I built my career, and you kind of built your resume, and you make your own. You grew up in pro, and people, they sign you after that because of what you did. But I think Bob was a mentor to me, and also after that, I was able to play in Cincinnati, the farm team of the Red Wings. It was Mike Babcock; he was my coach there. He was a good coach. I really liked him. He was really a great human being when I played for him. And after that,
Hmm.
Manitoba, I played for Randy Carlisle. So I was fortunate to have a lot of coach. And when you look at these three coach, they all won Stanley Cup. So it's tough
Exactly.
not to not learn from them when these guys are able to win gold medal at the Olympic and also the Stanley Cup in the NHL. And I'm a kind of guy that, I kept in touch with them too. So,
Yeah.
and still today, I try to keep in touch with these person, because their mentor, and they could help me out when I have questions. So it's fun to have them, to have their numbers in my cell, to be able to call them whenever I need like something or something concerning hockey. They'll help me out. They have a lot of experience.
Now, obviously, those three coaches are all legendary. Like you said, they ended up winning Stanley Cups and everything. Um, I'm guessing to survive over the years, the number one criteria would be, adaptation. You have to adapt to the certain teams you have. You have to adapt to the new regime of players coming up and all that. Would you say that's the one common line that you've seen in all those coaches, how they adapt?
Yes, how they adapt, especially when I was with Detroit, with Manitoba, not Manitoba, but with Cincinnati. We were the farm team also of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks back in the days. So,
Hmm.
Mike was the coach of Cincinnati. He had 10 players from Detroit and about 12, 13 players from Anaheim. So he was kind of like in between, helping out the Red Wings, but also helping out Anaheim. So he had to adapt a lot. But the
Yep.
main thing I've learned from these guys is probably the passion they have to the game for the game. To be like, people, they see the players in the NHL, and obviously it's the biggest league. The guys are treated really well, but when you play in the minors, and obviously you don't get the big contracts and the big money, and you have to sign 1-year deal, and you might move after a year. And when you have a family, you have kids like I did, they have to change school. I think the way I saw these guys, the passion and the effort they put into the game really gave me kind of like, if I want to do that, it's the number one thing is to have that passion for the game. And I think that's the number one thing I learned from these guys,
Hmm.
that the passion is probably the main thing, because if you don't have passion, you'll never have success. You'll never be able you'll never be able to make it in the hockey world if you're not passionate about it.
Yeah, for sure, and I'm pretty sure that's how some players that play for you or played for you in the past would describe you. Obviously, on the surface, I'd use the word intense, but I mean, you're just a very
Yeah,
passionate guy who loves, obviously would do anything to win, which is what a head coach is all about, basically.
yeah. Well, like I said to my players, I'm like, if you're not passionate, you'll never be able to improve.
Yeah,
You'll never be able to grow as a player. It's the number one thing. How many kids you see? A lot of kids these days playing the game, but not passionate about it. They play because probably their parents are telling them that they need to play, but at the end they don't want to play. And I always tell my players, I said, there's two different things. Is do you want to be a hockey player or do you want to play hockey? Because for me, to be a hockey player, there's a lot of work. There's a
hmm
lot of work behind the scene to become a hockey player.
yeah,
But to play hockey, I'm 45 years old and I can still play hockey, but I'll never be a player anymore. There's a lot of work behind the scene that you have to do to become a hockey player. And
yeah,
I always tell my players, it's tougher to be an NHL player than a doctor. And the people, they look at me, what do you mean? A doctor, you got to go 10 years in school to get your degree. Yeah, but a doctor, when you look at it, there's 700 NHL players playing in the National Hockey League, and there's
exactly.
700 doctor probably just in Montreal. And we're talking the NHL is worldwide, and there's 700 to 800 players.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of work that needs, and it's not everybody that wants to go through it. I call it the grind. Not everybody wants to go through the grind of becoming a hockey player. Some of the players, they just want to play. They just want to play, and it's okay. I
yeah.
respect that, but they need to know that to make it to the next level and to be able to have a career in hockey or as a coach, you got to go through that grind and you got to be willing to put the work.
Yeah, and that's the irony of it all. Obviously, if you want to make a
Exactly.
living from hockey, you got to put in the work. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's what it's all about.
exactly.
So Bruce, obviously, I'm seeing the time fly by here. I mean, we could go on and on for hours
Yeah.
getting all these stories. Obviously, we didn't even have time to cover the Danbury Trashers, which got famous with that Netflix documentary. I mean, I know you were captain of that team as well, but
Yeah.
I'll invite people to do their own homework on that. So obviously, I want to thank you again for taking the time for doing this. We'll wish you the best of luck for the playoffs. Obviously, we'll be rooting for you, and hopefully everything pans out for you guys. So thanks again for doing this, and we'll invite people to follow along. You're going to do this same interview on our French Facebook page now. So if people want to follow you on the French account, you'll be live in about 2 minutes.
Good.
So
Thank
thanks
you,
again.
David. Thanks.
Thanks.